Welcome back to Writing Done Right. Well, today we are going to talk about the pros and cons of extra planning and what might delay your book getting to print faster. Welcome back to the channel. I am Tom Murosky, an author and a technology consultant, and today we're going to talk a little bit more about the writing tips on getting your books done. And what motivated me to work on this video here is that the book I'm working on right now, albeit it's a little bit different, it's more of a memoir, testimony type book than it is anything else. And with that being said, I wanted to put a little bit of extra planning into it, but I think that the planning I went into it went a little bit too far to make the book way longer to write than it could have been had I taken a different approach. Now, this is going to be similar to another video I'm going to have soon about not waiting for your book to be perfect, but that's really not what the issue is with this particular book. What I'm dealing with right now is the approach that I took, which is kind of the same approach I talked about before, where I'm getting things organized and I'm putting things on paper, but the problem is, whereas I usually used to go in and write, an essay, which is a paragraph or two, basically that would outline the whole chapter. In this case, since it's dealing with my personal life and testimony, I've flipped through journals and then sat down to write, but the essays I'm writing are pages and pages long, sometimes up to like 6 pages of handwritten essays. So what I'm finding is as I'm over preparing and over planning the book, I'm writing it all out and I'm getting everything down almost to paper to a T. And then I have really good essay and starting material, but now I have to go back and reduplicate all of that work. What it results in is it takes about 2 to 3 times longer to work on any individual chapter. So I might actually take only about a day of writing to knock out about the 2,000 word chapters that this particular book has. But it's taking me almost twice that long to handwrite out the essays. For sure, some of that is planning, thinking, maybe reading through some journals, but a fair amount of it I'm noticing is writing everything out down in essays and getting some things done and scrubbed out and stuff like that on paper first. Now, this might actually result in a better final written manuscript. That is yet to be seen, and I'll determine that when we get the beta readers out there looking at that individual book. But what I found is it's taken me twice as long to write it. So as of now, we are just under 60,000 words written. I'm really on the last couple of chapters. I decided I'm going to add one more chapter to it today. And so I thought it was going to be on the last chapter, but I'm actually going to add an extra chapter in the middle. So we have another chapter to be written, and I project that I will probably finish the text sometime either late October here or early into November, which is actually going to push our beta reading out. So on this, if you want in on the beta reading, use the contact form on writingdoneright.net/contact and just put as your subject line there, beta read. This is going to be a Christian testimony book, so be aware of that. I think we're going to start it, originally I was going to start in the middle of November, but I think I'm going to push that out to beginning of December. We're going to start getting that out. And then we'll determine, is the extra time and extra steps worth it or is it not? And I could really go either way. So let's go ahead and look at the things I'm thinking about. What is worth the extra time? Well, I feel like writing out the extended chapters entirely by hand first allows me to really get into the story a little bit more. It allows a little bit of extra editorial, and I can fill in a few of the blocks earlier before I actually get to the computer. The things that I might not actually get to if I were writing it all on the computer to begin with. So that might be a good pro of the extra time. Even though it is taking a lot more time to write, I might get a final, better product in the end. Now, the other thing that I might actually see or encounter is, with the positives, is by writing it down by hand, when you write something by hand, it tends to reflect into your mind more. It tends to process more. And that means I think I might get, again, a better result from the product. On the downsides, it is taking a whole lot longer to write it out. Ordinarily, I could write about a 60,000 word book in probably only a couple of months. I mean, my science fiction novel Synaptergy was about 55,000, and I really wrote that only a matter of about 6 months for the first draft. And that was while I was working on 2 other books that also got fully edited and produced in the middle of that time. And so with that, we get this kind of thing going where it just took so much longer to work on that I'm wondering if it is even worth it, but we'll see. A next big downside is, hey, it did cost me a lot more in notebooks. I've actually been through a couple of notebooks now working on this, and a few pens for that. Not that that's really expensive or difficult to get, for sure, absolutely not. But nevertheless, for a person that likes to minimize things and have as few papers laying around, it's an extra step. But nevertheless, I think ultimately it's getting good. But the problem is, the book, like I said, is taking me twice as long to write. I don't imagine the production time is going to be as high, and I'm going to guess that the editing time is also not going to be all that high as well. So those are kind of my thoughts on the pros and the cons of extra planning. So the final take home here is, while, particularly for those of us who plan, while planning is good, over-planning is a thing. And if you over-plan, it could take you a whole lot longer to write your book than you otherwise would have wanted it to. And that in and of itself could be a challenge. And so we have to be careful about over-planning anything. We want to be careful not to do that. The other factor that I want to look at in regards to this is that when we are working on all this extra planning, we have to take the time to do the extra steps. In other words, it's taking me about a week to a week and a half to get an individual chapter done, whereas it could have taken me less than a week and have an extra editorial draft of it done by the same amount of time without the extra planning. So my final take-home message, I guess, is plan for sure, but be careful about over-planning. Be careful about trying to nail everything down perfectly from the get-go. Allow yourself a little bit more flexibility and allow yourself a little bit more editing on the computer. If nothing else, save a little bit of paper. So those are kind of my thoughts. So we'll kind of leave you with this. You can have a look over at the website at WritingDoneRight.net for a lot of other tips on book production or book writing over there. We do have the editorial or the beta read program coming up for this book, which is my testimony story. Use the contact form, WritingDoneRight.net/contact, if you are interested in getting in on that. And also, our Christian publishing company is open for submissions. I do not have an official submission sign up, but I do have, you can use the email address at submissions@owicpub.com. We are a Christian publisher focusing on Christian teaching that is specifically highly adhered to the scriptural analysis. You can have a look over the website at owicpub.com. There's a button there if you would like to schedule some time to talk about your book as well. We can go ahead and have a brief conversation. We are an indie publishing company. We're not a vanity press, so that you're not paying anything to get your book published. And we can cover all of those details in a brief meeting. So head on over to owicpub.com if you are interested in that. Thanks for coming along, and I hope that we have helped you to get your writing done right.